Hey Homeworthy, I'm Anna Wooten. Welcome to our home in Atlanta.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
My name is Anna Wooten Loggins, and I actually go by Anna Wooten, and I'm an interior designer here in Atlanta, and this is my home in historic Brookhaven. So Randall and I purchased this home in March of 2020, and we moved in April of 2020, which was kind of the height of the shutdown for COVID. I was actually pregnant with my youngest child at the time, and what a time to move. It was an interesting situation, but this house was built in the 1930s. I wanted a home with a lot of work. Randall was on board as well later. And we really had to rebuild the house from the inside out. And what I mean by that is we had to replace the HVAC systems, the plumbing, the electrical, the water heaters. The one thing we haven't touched are these original windows. They're double hung, floor to ceiling, original to the house on the front. And it's tough in the August months in Atlanta how warm it gets, but to me, the beauty of them, I can't bring myself to replace them quite yet. But yeah, we've put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into this home. It was an old one that just needed a lot of work. So I would drive by this home quite often. We lived not far from here, and I always just thought it had great curb appeal and great potential. The street is amazing. It's one of the wide streets over in historic Brookhaven, and I was drawn to it pretty immediately from the first time I saw it. And that was years before we even purchased the home. I think that the Circle Drive is so charming and inviting, and I think later today we'll talk a lot about how important that is to us, is like feeling welcome and feeling inviting, and that the neighbors can walk over or friends show up. I wanted something that we could put 25 years of work into and just keep making it our own, and this property really was the perfect spot. So here we are in the formal living room. This is kind of the first space off the foyer to the right when you walk in the home. And this is arguably one of my favorite spaces. And I started actually with the paint color of this room, which is not something that I normally do. A lot of times I'm starting with fabric or a piece of existing art or an existing rug, but in this space I didn't have anything to start with. So I decided Farrah and Ball light blue for the room, and it's an interesting color because it changes. So with the light, it can be light blue, sometimes it looks green, sometimes it can be kind of a moody gray. And I just decided this was kind of the starting point for this space. It really was kind of the catch-all package box room for quite a while when we moved in, because I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do with it. So over time, I've kind of collected these pieces, and it's truly a collection, because not one piece of furniture in this room was purchased at the same time as the other. So I have a habit of just buying things as I see them, as I love them, and maybe they don't have a home yet, but this is a room that kind of just shows it all come together as a collection over time. And I try to stress that to my clients as well, that you don't have to have the room completely done. Like, wait a little while, shop a little bit, see what you find, see what speaks to you. And I think that like having a little bit of a collected home is truly special. As you can see, there's definitely some antiques kind of filtered through this room. That's definitely one of my favorite things to shop for, are antiques, or just stumble across them, if you will. And I'm more drawn to kind of a neoclassical look when it comes to antiques, but I definitely do not discriminate on decade or era. I really think they all have something great to offer. And you'll see that with, this is a reproduction chinoiserie top table, but has kind of a funky stripe detail, kind of more of a neoclassical antique here with this marble top table. And this is, kind of a French piece that I recently found in Atlanta, and the carving I think is so beautiful and feminine. So I really think that, you collect things that speak to you and that you love, and filling a home with pieces that mean something to you and that you want to be around every day is really important. This piece actually was my husband Randall's old desk in the old house, and I decided that it just needed a moment here for the more family photos and collected pieces. So thankfully, he gives me most of the creative control in this house. He's in finance and I obviously am in design, so it works out well. So these beautiful built-ins were actually already here in the home. We just added this interesting kind of faux bois wallpaper by Noblesse here in the back. I just wanted a little texture, not necessarily pattern, to add a little bit of interest. And these amazingly large barnacle pots that I've just always thought were so interesting and neat. And it reminds me of, growing up and going to the beach and being near the coast and being in landlocked Atlanta here. I've got to kind of sprinkle things throughout the home that kind of remind me of that part of my life that I love and still get to visit. So this is one example of kind of bringing in those coastal elements without the room feeling coastal. This piece here, this is a Nick Malay photographer. It's called Grand Hands, and I touched on talking about my grandmothers kind of early on, and this is kind of a piece that reminds me of both of them. The hand itself really reminds me of my mom's mom, and then the painted fingernails and the kind of funky cocktail in color kind of reminds me of my dad's mom. And so this piece just spoke to me, and I know it's not for everyone, but this for some reason just has kind of a special meaning to me. And speaking of family, this wall is just kind of a collection of baby photos. This is actually my mom as a young girl, and my sister and I when we were a little bit younger, in a charcoal. And, I'll probably add to this over time. I think it's kind of fun to just start layering in the things that are special to you. Another example is just this antique scale that is maybe a little bit different, but we thought it was cool. We picked it up at an antique show and adds a little interest to a bookshelf. So this area here is actually kind of a walkway here to the playroom, but this was one of the first antiques I purchased maybe early on in my 30s, and it's a Biedermeier piece that kind of goes back to that neoclassical antique style that I was speaking of earlier. And it's really just kind of a layering moment for me. It's all of these black and white family photos that I just love, and I'm kind of an overdoer when it comes to family photos, but these are the things that make me happy and that I want to see every day. So I layer them. Really, this room is kind of layered all over with family photos, and I never think you can have too many. Talking about just kind of collecting things over time, these I've had for a decade, and I picked these up at a local antique shop where I'm from in Wilson, North Carolina, and they're reproductions, obviously, but I have things in this room that all have a meaning to me. They all have a story, and it's just kind of things that were collected over time. I think one other thing to note about each room in my house is I really love a stripe. If I could pick one motif for the rest of my life, it would be a stripe. And almost every room in my house is going to have some sort of stripe. In this particular room, it's actually on the coffee table, which is just kind of a fun detail. And again, to me, this is kind of bringing in something a little bit edgier to a room full of kind of traditional, if you will. Going back to the eras thing, to me, this is a very mid-century 60s, 70s chair vibe, but it's mixed with a French leg bench and a twisted leg desk, bleached oak desk. So I think that you can mix finishes in antiques. I think you can mix styles and eras, and it really kind of adds interest. My personal style is absolutely rooted in, tradition. I grew up around mostly English antiques in a very traditional home with grandparents that loved antiques, and my mother loves antiques, and I feel like the root of my style is certainly traditional, but most spaces that I do always have a little bit of an edge. And maybe that's just a chair here or a fabric here, but mixing some newer elements, edgier elements with the true traditional stuff, I feel like it's really kind of right up my alley as far as style goes. I think it's also fair to say that I think I get asked that question more often than you would think, and I never have a great like 3-word answer for it, but I like to think that my interiors are somewhat timeless and classic. Time maybe will tell on all of that, but I think that's why like rooting it in tradition is so important. And then, you know, mixing in a pillow or a chair, and these are like the small things that could change over time, whereas like the main part of the room kind of stays timeless and classic. Now I'm gonna take you into our playroom / sunroom, which just happens to be off the most formal space in the house. But anyway, it kind of goes back to stage of life, like I was talking about earlier. And I have a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old, and they love the playroom. It is definitely part of our life, and it's nice to have them here on the main floor. So we have transformers coming out of our ears in the baskets, and then my daughter loves to, you know, create cards and drawings and stories, and she has a space in here to kind of be creative in that. And back to the stripe comment, obviously we really went big with the stripe here in this sofa. This is just a traditional English arm, like rolled arm sofa that I actually purchased off my first boss, and we've recovered it, and it has kind of followed me throughout all of my homes, and it's just a great staple. It goes to show that if you have nice upholstery pieces, they're gonna last and stand the test of time if you can just recover them in a fabric that's current. So here in the playroom, it is attached and open to the formal living room. So we definitely wanted it to feel a little more buttoned up than a normal playroom because it's so visible, but at the same time, you want your children to come in here and enjoy it and build and be creative, and we think this is a great spot for them to do so. One just little tip, I guess, if you will, is I had a lot of open shelving, and that can get messy, you know, pretty quickly. So I added a little cafe panel down here to really hide the mess, like the stuff you don't want to look at through the formal living room. And then again, just baskets are always such a key element for keeping things very organized, dinosaurs included. Another just fun kind of detail in this space is just adding a lampshade that's a little bit more unexpected. It's kind of a trend that's come back that I'm totally here for. And this is just kind of a seafoam linen, but you know, it's just a little bit more interesting than a normal white lampshade. And it adds some interest, especially on a white lamp with a white side table. Again, my daughter just loves to create cards. We don't really buy any birthday cards anymore. She loves to make them here. And then we've just added a bulletin board here in this pretty fabric. This was all custom done for us. And they have a spot where they can put their drawings and be creative and, you know, photos of their friends. So it's definitely important for it to feel like a playroom for them, but again, just being a little bit more polished just due to its location. I feel like every room really needs a nice drape, and in a good way to kind of keep costs down in a room, especially like a playroom, is to just do a solid linen here and then add a fun tape trim. You know, you just kind of add the detail here, keep it simple as far as the main fabric goes, and it's just, again, kind of gives you a polished look and a layered look. So now we're gonna head to the other side of the house, on the other side of the foyer, to the formal dining room. So this is our dining room. Again, it's just right off the foyer, and we do use this room sometimes for dinner parties, sometimes just to kind of hold the food if we're having a cocktail party. But in all honesty, my children use the front door quite often, and during the week, sometimes this becomes the mudroom. So this dining table and the chandelier actually both came from a previous show house. So they instantly just found a home here because I had them. And I really kind of wanted to dress up the dining room a little bit. So I feel like this table could go a little casual, as could the chandelier. So I found these amazing French dining chairs here locally. I think this is kind of one of those things where when you just fall in love with something and maybe it's not perfect, but you just feel like you can make it work. That was kind of these chairs. I needed 8 chairs, and this was a set of 7. So as you can see, I have this sad single 7th chair here, which is great. And when I have 8, I just pull up another chair and we make it work. I didn't want to sacrifice the beautiful like patina of the original leather and all of this just because it had one less chair. So again, the table is a little bit more of a casual piece, but layering it with the more formal pieces, I think, is what makes it more appropriate for a formal dining room. This piece here actually was one of my grandmother's pieces. It was her punch bowl, silver punch bowl, and I've recently stolen this from my mother for an event. And I'm not sure she's ever going to get it back, because you put anything in this vessel and it just is beautiful due to the vessel. So I think special touches and heirlooms like this really can make a room special. This room is not a huge room. It's a great size, but it's not a huge room. So I kind of wanted to focus on some larger scale pieces in here. For example, this large bleached buffet and very tall lamps, a really tall antique kind of scalloped mirror from Foxglove Antiques, but really just like everything on this wall, I wanted to have like kind of a grander scale to really help kind of ground the room. On this wall over here, this is a really special piece. This is my grandmother when she was about 4 years old. I feel just so fortunate to be able to have this in my home, and this beautiful portrait and this beautiful frame, and especially someone that's just been so influential in my life and my career. So I actually started the dining room with the wallpaper. We installed this Brunswick and Fee wallpaper right when we moved in. And it's such a classic. It's been around for a long time. It's definitely served us well. And it's definitely a neutral. It has like a small touch of the blue with the little birds and a touch of green. So we added the blue wool window treatments to kind of pull the color out of it a little bit. So over here on this wall, again, like this is a pretty big walkway from the front door to the kitchen. So it had to be pretty open. And this is a piece that I found forever ago, and there is nothing fine about it, but I think I picked it up at a thrift shop. But it is, the tortoise on it to me is so special, and it's really done right. I feel like tortoise can go one way or another, and this one to me just so interesting, and I think this is just one of those pieces that will follow me forever, and who knows where it will end up, but it'll always be in my homes. Again, just touching on the blue wool drape here with just trying to add a little bit of color on a super neutral kind of wallpaper wall. And again, just a very elegant tape trim by Samuel & Sons that has this pretty beading on it that again just kind of dresses things up a little bit. This corner is kind of a dead corner, so I've always liked having plants. When in doubt, add a plant. And this is a pretty special planter, kind of hot off the boat from France, thanks to Huff Harrington, but I think it's just always a good way to fill a corner with something green. This is also Mabel's favorite room in the house. She loves to sit here by these windows. These are the windows I mentioned earlier that are original single pane windows, but the scale of them, again, is just so beautiful and hard and expensive to replicate, so they are staying as they are for now. So this is actually my grandmother's silver. This grandmother, actually, it's his Old Maryland engraved, and it actually has a G on it for my maiden last name, and they're, again, just special pieces to me. I love to bring them out. Even if it's a casual dinner party, I'm pulling out the silver. And another just kind of high-low moment, I have to touch on these plates because I think they're so great, and they are actually a Gwyneth Paltrow for CB2 situation, and again, there's nothing really fine about them, but I've always loved them, and I think they go so well in the space. So, mix your grandmother's silver with the CB2 china. So now we're gonna head to the powder room, which is just down the hall. This is our little powder room, and again, this is another kind of space where I just wanted to add some collected pieces of art. And they don't all make sense together, but in my mind, they're all things that I like, so they make sense together because of that. But again, just like kind of collecting pieces over time, this is another like moment where some of my like coastalness comes in, and I've got this great Schumacher kind of koi wallpaper that is very neutral, but just adds almost texture with its tone on tone, which is really pretty, and just a mixture of things that make me happy. I grew up playing piano, and my daughter just started playing piano, so this was just kind of an interesting piece of sheet music that I found at an antique shop. I grew up a Tar Heel, so this ram kind of represents that. And then just other things that are collected that feel interesting to me. One of the things we really loved about this home initially was that it was not an open concept, and you still had these, traditional, cozy living spaces that were separate from the more casual spaces. And I feel like it kind of created some intimate spaces for entertaining, but also creates a great flow for a larger scale party. We love to entertain. It's something that we learned growing up to just have an open door policy, and whether it's a dinner party with an invitation or it's friends and neighbors just popping in, we learned that you always have to be ready to entertain. And my grandmother used to always say, have a room in your home that is always ready to receive company. And that's kind of the room that we're in now. It's the formal living room. And we try to keep it as clean and as presentable as possible, so we have that space to welcome someone in when they show up. So I think that's one thing that I loved immediately about the home, was these kind of separated spaces, and the kitchen is on the far side of the house. The den where we entertain, kids and family is kind of on the back of the house, and then you have the dining and the living room right off the foyer. Sometimes we're using one or two of the rooms, and sometimes we're using the whole house, but the house really does lend itself well to all kinds of entertaining. So here we are kind of at the back of the house. This is the den, and this is really where we spend the most time as a family. So we went a little bit more fun in here, since it is kind of where we entertain the kids. This great Adeline kind of tulip fabric, and we kind of you'll see in a minute the sofa, but we use this Sister Parish performance fabric on the ottoman and on the sofa. And it's been, it was kind of a risk to do such a large pattern and such a crazy pattern on a sofa, but it was just the one room that we wanted to add a little bit more punch in, more color, more fun. And this space is, it's really our family hangout. So this space was a little bit of a challenge. It actually, when we moved in, had a giant built-in here that kind of ate up part of the room. And it's a long room, but it's a narrow room. So we ended up taking the built-in out, and we added the grass cloth, which to me just really warms up, especially a large space. So it's actually a sunken room, so you step down 2 steps to get here. So the ceilings are a great height, but we really had to play with the furniture layout to make sure there were enough walkways and the flow still worked. So it is a little bit segmented, which has really worked well for us. There's like a vignette over here that might not get used as much, but when we entertain and we are, opening presents for a baby shower or bridal shower, there's really a spot for kind of everyone to perch for that, which I love. My home is also a little bit of a collection of things that somehow get left over from a project, and this coffee table is kind of one of those things, and it ended up working great. It is a solid concrete piece that's from a local showroom here called Bradley, and it is thousands of pounds, and it has really served more as like a dance floor for my children here. They love to get up here, sing to American Idol, all the things on the coffee table. Again, I kind of touched on the fabric over here on the ottoman, but this sofa we had made in this performance Sister Parish fabric, and then kind of mixed in some more florals and fun, younger, happy fabrics in here. And again, always mixing in the antiques, whether it's a small or a big piece. I've got a really pretty kind of feminine French bleached piece here. And then as you'll see back here, I've got more of an English walnut piece. So I feel like you can mix antiques into any room, casual or formal. Okay, so kind of, the back section of this room, this is kind of our game table. And we do puzzles here, we play mahjong, we have couples over to play spades. My children love to sit here on a Friday night and eat pizza and have a movie night. So this, it's a very small corner of our house, but it is used often. And I'll tell you a funny story, actually. So when we were selling our old house, we had actually this exact table in our den. And adjacent to the den was the dining room, and adjacent to that was the breakfast room. And I remember someone coming through and they said, wow, she has a lot of dining tables. And it is so true. It's such an intimate gathering space. You can do so many things. You can connect with people here. And this is just one of our favorite little corners of our house. This is just a more traditional piece. This is actually the first antique I think I bought as a young adult, now that I'm thinking about it. 18th century walnut, and to me just can go in a bedroom, a hallway. It ended up here in the den, but it's moved around a lot, and it's one of my favorite pieces, and special because it was one of the first antiques I purchased on my own. Most of my others are hand-me-downs or things that I've found a little more recently. This is a Sally King piece. I love her graphic faces. I think they're very iconic in Atlanta as well. She used to live here, but this is just a piece that I've had for a while that I really love in this corner. I think something that I talked about earlier in this room was how it was kind of a narrow space and we needed the walkways. So instead of putting like a big hefty lamp on a side table that you would normally see, we ended up doing these kind of brass task lamps that can kind of tuck behind the sofa a little bit. So this is a piece by Vessela Baker, who shows at Ann Irwin. And she truly, I think, is my favorite artist. I have placed her in so many homes, and I have 2 pieces of hers in my house as well. But to me, it's such a marriage of, you know, a traditional floral oil print with an abstract. So one thing that I do also love about this room is the window treatment fabric, which this is a Marika Meyer print that is kind of iconic in our interiors. We laugh because we try to get a different colorway in most of our projects. It is just such a great small scale, adds a little interest, but not too busy. And Marika actually custom colored this drape for me, the little motif in this particular fabric for this room. And it's always just been kind of special to me. You really have to pick something you love when you have this many windows and this many drapes. So I do think one day this would be such a great kind of segue to a covered porch. We have some fun plans in the works for that, and I think this will end up being a set of French doors on either side of the fireplace and, you know, kind of make this an indoor-outdoor space eventually. I had 2 very creative grandmothers growing up, and one was a little bit more eclectic, you know, well-traveled, and the other one was kind of traditionally elegant. She was kind of more into the fashion side of things and collecting antiques. So I like to think that maybe my creativity comes from a combination of them. And when I first got to college, interior design was not even really at the top of my list. I started out in fashion, and that went south very quickly. I think my first pair of jeans that I sewed together had a giant hole in them, and my professor thought maybe it wasn't the path for me, and that was okay. Anyway, I stayed in the College of Textiles and just ended up learning so much about fabrics and the properties of fabrics and how to use them and how they're made. And it really got my wheels turning on what I could do with that. So I moved to Atlanta, like I said, in 2010, started working in the design business for about 5 or 6 years, and then in 2016 started Anna Wooten Interiors, and have just kind of had a slow and steady growth since 2016, and I've had amazing team members. I've had my sister by my side the whole time. My family has supported me the whole time, and we know we've really we've grown it into something that is a true career, and we have fun with it. So this is kind of a walk-through space that really just naturally felt like a good spot for a bar. So it segues into the kitchen, it's right off the den, and it's right here also off the formal living room and the foyer. So it just kind of became a centralized place for us to just create a self-serve bar. I think it kind of goes back to the entertaining thing and making people feel comfortable in your home, and even though you don't have some grand built-in bar, just creating kind of a central spot where someone can self-serve or come make a drink or a mocktail, whatever it may be. But I think kind of styling a table as a bar is one of the most fun things to do. I think you can really just mix in old, new, all the things, and really kind of make it special for your guest. Just as an example, I actually collect these old antique handkerchiefs, which sometimes are pocket squares, sometimes they're handkerchiefs, and I use them as cocktail napkins. So I just put them out. People know what they're for when they're right next to the bar, and every time I'm at a little antique store, I kind of look for them. Again, it felt like the natural spot for the bar, and maybe one day it will be a built-in bar, and that would be great. But really all you need is a table to create a bar. A table and maybe a tray. Pick up a silver tray at a local antique store and then just start filling it with all your favorite things. So this is actually just a great library table from Hickory Chair. We've layered a custom ottoman, again, a Sister Parish fabric that I've always loved here, that kind of plays back with the blue of the Caleb Mahoney. He's a great artist in Florida and shows here at Greg Irby. And I think, this is probably the most abstract piece I have in my home, but it still brings me joy all these years later, and it helps kind of ground this space. Another kind of example of things that you can collect, obviously matches, which is not anything unique, but the vessels in which you show them in. These are just kind of more of my coastal touches here. These shell silver plates or bowls, whatever you would call them, just kind of serve as a really interesting vessel to put matches or lemons and limes. I recently did a little neighborhood meeting, and the meeting was about making the most of your yard. And this is kind of a prime example. I just walked around my yard with a set of clippers and found some fun branches and stick them in a vase. And, they add a little bit of green, which every space needs a little bit of green. So welcome to the kitchen. This is definitely kind of a workhorse for us. Again, just with young children, we're in here a lot. We're cooking, we're entertaining, we're grilling right off this area. And is this my dream kitchen? No, but it has really served us well as it is now. And the future may hold another beautiful kitchen, but for now, it's served us well, and it's great. There's nothing wrong with a white neutral kitchen. I don't think they're ever gonna go out of style. I love kind of sitting here at the sink and being able to look out in the front yard, and the kids are out there swinging or scootering. So the setup is great, the windows are great, and it's really, it's served us well. We've added, pretty Roman shade here and a nice soft fabric. Obviously adding some antiques in here with this Ushak runner. Again, back to the kind of fun printed lampshade just to add a little touch and a little detail. We added a lantern here, it used to be over our old breakfast table, but just kind of grounding the size and scale of this island with this single lantern here. So over here is kind of our breakfast room area, and this is my sister, Mary Riddick, Stallworth. She also has a double name. We work together. She's our office manager / bookkeeper / glue. She kind of holds us all together, to be honest. So really every day is better because of her, and I'm so lucky to have her in Atlanta. And I love having her here kind of in this breakfast area as we are kind of embarking on a fun new project, and we are writing a book together, which we hope to kind of make it all about connecting our memories and our recipes growing up with our mom with the interiors that we kind of work on every day. So that is kind of our slow start process.
Yes, we're so excited. We really want our readers and our clients to sort of be able to open their doors and easily entertain people that are, friends and class parties and any kind of people that you may need to have in your house. We really want them to be able to open their doors with ease and style and be able to do that simply.
So one really easy way to kind of impress your guest is to find a really interesting board that you can create a spread. These are just things you can pull out of your refrigerator or your pantry, and when you put them all together on the right platter or board, it really comes together and looks special. This just happens to be a Lazy Susan, which is just so incredible, and I think I use this board and loan this board out more than any other thing that I have.
We think it's so important too. It doesn't have to be difficult. All these things you can buy at the grocery store, you can always have on hand. We think, growing up, it was always chicken salad and pimento cheese, ranch dip, always in our parents' refrigerator. And it's just so easy when you have a go-to item that you can just pull straight out of your refrigerator, no matter whether you're planning on an event or if someone's popping by. It's nice to have something that you can always count on to pull out. And in this case, we've got some good Southern staples, pimento cheese and chicken salad.
This is another example of just kind of pulling something out of your yard. This is just winter jasmine that, quite honestly, I thought was a weed for a while in the corner of my house, but it's really effective and kind of fun and funky. And then, of course, love like adding a really pretty floral here. I like to do all my own florals for photo shoots and for installs. It's definitely a passion, and I think it kind of leads into the whole entertaining thing as well. Say you don't have beautiful, precious flowers in your house, like run to the yard with your clippers and grab something out of the yard to kind of create a special moment for your guest. I think in another life, I would likely own a flower shop that sells chicken salad and maybe some antiques on the side. So we're gonna head on upstairs to the primary suite. So here we are in the primary bedroom. This bedroom, actually, I kind of picked up from our Serenbe show house last year and put in this place. So we had the primary suite at the Serenbe show house last year. And so I kind of designed that with it coming home in mind. This bed, which I think is just such a classic, it goes back to that neoclassical look in this beautiful silk velvet by Nancy Corzine that I've always loved. And we really obviously dove deep in here with this chartreuse screen. This is a Carolina Irving fabric on the drapes here. This is just a print that I've always loved. It comes in a lot of colorways and I've used it in other projects, but the chartreuse was kind of speaking to me, and I kind of used these chocolate accents to go along with it. Really because the drapery feels, heavy because there's so much of it and a little bit darker. I really wanted everything else to kind of feel light and airy. And so the antiques I chose in this room are actually all bleached antiques. So they're gonna feel a little bit lighter, not in scale, but in color. One thing I love to do on a large bed would be to do custom Euroshams. I feel like a lot of the sheeting materials that come pre-made in a Eurosham kind of have a flappy flange, and when you do them custom, you actually can really get them nice and taut, and they always look nice. They look presentable. And we have young children and a dog that sleeps in the bed, and so we have to be real careful with what we put on our bed. I love custom bedding and custom everything when it comes to a bed, but I really had to kind of pull back and restrain here just based on lifestyle. So we went with the custom bedding for our sheets and for our pretty pillowcases. You can see the monogram here and this embroidery in the chartreuse. And then just, again, something that holds its shape and easy to throw on and off of the bed. So it's a very easy bed to make in the morning. My kids love to play battle with this lovely sewn Britain pillow. But again, just trying to make things easy and comfortable for when you're using a space as much as we use this one. So this is a beautiful French kind of bleached commode. I actually sourced this at a local shop, B.D. Jeffries, here in Atlanta. And I think Debbie there does such a great job of sourcing antiques in Europe. And she and I have kind of a similar taste in antiques. And this is a piece that I love due to scale, size, and just because of the fun details. So this is kind of my side of the bed over here. And one thing I also love to add in a primary bedroom is a spot to sit quietly and do a little work or write a thank you note, but just to have a perch of your own. So this desk really provides that space for me. I actually work here sometimes as well. And I think that's kind of a special thing to have in a primary bedroom. So this is a collection of Vicki Sides pieces. I met her years ago at Scott's Antique Market and really have kind of kept up with her through the years. And I commissioned her to do all of these pieces again for that Serenbe show house. They were above the bathtub in the bathroom. But they found a home here. And I have a lot of her pieces kind of scattered throughout the house. She really has a moment in the upstairs hall, which you'll see. But I just think they're interesting. Again, like a botanical mixed with an abstract mixed with a letter. So just adds a little bit of interest on a blank wall. So this is the primary bathroom, which we actually just finished renovating. This is definitely my retreat in the house. I love this bathroom so much. And I think I thought about this bathroom since 2020 when we moved in. So it's extra special that, you know, we didn't do it right away. We thoughtfully did it, and I'm really, really happy with how it all turned out. I think kind of the shining star of it all is this gorgeous green Calcutta marble that we sourced through Renaissance here. And thanks to Alan at Renaissance, because he really had to talk me off of a few ledges here. But I'm so glad we landed where we landed. I really couldn't even bring myself to put a rug on this marble because I just love to look at it and all of its imperfections and all of its beauty. And we mixed it with this really pretty natural green and a brass hardware. We stuck with a natural finish in here, so this is all unlacquered brass. And when you do a natural finish like unlacquered brass, most every vendor is going to have a similar color. And what I mean by that is, you know, the faucets here are Waterworks, but the hardware is Ashley Norton, classic brass, Urban Electric, and this is Alno. So if you stick with a finish that is more consistent over all of the vendors, then you're gonna have a more curated look, in my opinion, versus having, you know, one vendor who provides all of the hardware and all of the towel bars and all of the faucets. So I love to kind of create that curated look by mixing different collections, but in the same finish. So the countertop is a play obviously on the floor as well when we honed it and added this really pretty OG edge detail here. I think it's soft but warm, and again, like a lot of people kind of shy away from marble in a bathroom or a kitchen, but I say do the marble, do what you love, and just let it age, and it gets just as beautiful with age. Speaking of age, kind of back to the hardware finishes. So unlacquered brass is just a polished brass that has no finished coat on it. So it really is going to patina over time the more you use it. Some people love that, some people don't. I happen to love it, but the bathroom is too new to actually show the patina yet, but stay tuned, it will patina over time. This was just another fun antique find here that we covered in this green velvet and kind of played off the green of the Wheezy towels, which we did this custom embroidery color in store with them. Again, just love kind of curating something different. Like your hand towels don't have to match your bath towels. Just kind of creating something unique and something that's unique to you. It's those special little touches that, you know, again, make a house a home. We decided to not do any sheetrock in this room. If I was building a house today, the whole thing would likely be wood. I just think it adds such a warmth and such a texture to the wall. So this is just a 6-inch V-groove or tongue and groove that we kind of did the entire room in. And again, just keeping the paint color consistent. So all of the trim, all of the walls, all of the cabinets, and even the ceiling, everything is the same color in this room. And then you just play with sheens based on what your material is. Another fun unlacquered brass piece that we found, this was actually made to order in Morocco, which is just kind of fun and different. And again, just like adds to the collected look versus kind of going with everything that matches. So this is our laundry room. It's upstairs, which is great. It's right off all the bedrooms. And we had a lot of fun with materials in this room. So the black and white floor, it's marble, but it is so classic to me, and I definitely wanted it in some space in my home, and this just turned out to be the spot to have it. Also, another favorite material of mine is soapstone, and this is all soapstone, which to me is so great with the green veining, some white veining too, and really played off the fun cabinet color. This is called Spanish Olive, and it's definitely a go-to green for me. I haven't always been a green person, but as of late, I am definitely a green person. We added a little softness here with the skirt. This is a fun block print through Ainsworth Noah, and again, kind of took the unlacquered brass finish in here to really play off the green and the black. I feel like sometimes a laundry room or a utility room can be overlooked or an easy spot to just, close the door, paint the cabinets white. But I really wanted to have a little fun in here. And that might have been because of what it looked like when we moved in. It was kind of a sea of mismatched IKEA cabinets, and it was really sad to be in here. And I knew I just wanted to make it a happy and comfortable space because, as we all know, we do spend a lot of time in the laundry room. So down this hallway, we're actually gonna step into my son Watson's room. So here we are in Watson's room. He's my 4.5-year-old. And we went with this kind of daybed, trundle bed setup due to the room size. And this kind of allowed him to have a great spot to play, pull out all of his trucks and dinosaurs and all of the things. So it just turned out to be a really good setup for the size of this room. I love the bird dog here, pillow fabric. This was kind of a favorite, and actually started with that when we did his room. And then these fun car prints. This is the Matchbox series by Leslie Mitchell. I think she's so great. She's a photographer, and we use her work in a lot of our projects. The paint color in here is called Early Morning, and it's one of my favorite kind of deep blues. I don't think it's overly boyish or overly girlish. I just think it's like such a good medium blue. So it's a great color for a kitchen island accent or a bar accent or a study. And in this case, we used it in Watson's room. So one thing I wanted to be really intentional about was that he could grow into this space. So even though he's young now, I really wanted a space that he could also live in, as a middle schooler or teenager. So again, back to the stripe. This is a Schumacher stripe that I just have always loved. And this along with the bird dog, we kind of launched the room off of these two pieces. And to me, it's not too young, it's not too old. It's kind of like right there in the sweet spot that can grow with him over time. I think acrylic bookshelves are always a really great, inexpensive way to display a lot of your kids' books and things. We did a stack of 5 here vertically on this wall. And as much as I wish that this was, full of sweet, charming little boy books, my 4.5-year-old is very into who will win and everything being realistic. So, tiger shark versus leopard seal and who eats who. That's just who he is, and we're embracing it. So as an interior designer, I think it's really our job to make a house a home. And I think a lot of that has to do with the stage of life that you're in. We have a lot of clients that are young with young children, and they have dogs and pets, and they're focused on making their home beautiful, but also making it durable. So we bring in, indoor-outdoor fabrics that look like interior fabrics. We really work with the client to make sure their home is livable and great for their stage of life. We also have clients that are, becoming empty nesters, or they're retiring, and they're not quite as worried about the white silk pillow or the pure linen sofa. So I really think that making a home livable for your stage of life is very important. And there's always time later to collect the finer things, if you will, if you're worried about them getting broken or smudged. So I think making a home comfortable, making a home somewhere where you can create memories with your family and create memories by inviting people in your door and entertaining. I think those are the small things that really kind of make your house a home.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content, shopping guides, and so much more.